Cozy Corner of Cinema, episode number 172, being recorded on Thursday, July 17th, 2025, at, excuse me, at 6:21 p.m. Oh, excuse me there for a second. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all are staying consistent with your hopes and dreams, your goals, whatever it is that you need to achieve. It's good to kind of have a plan going forward of what you want to achieve, every week or every month, every year, kind of break it down, or even something simple like, let's say you're writing a novel. Well, how much work do you want to get done today, and then you kind of build that and snowball it into something bigger. It's how much do you want to get done this month, this year. It's all about, life's work is never done. It's all about really just kind of being consistent, really kind of, consistently, I know I said consistent twice there, putting your best foot forward, putting in the work, getting the job done so that, you can have the best result possible. And, really just kind of, you can look back and go, wow, man, that was great. And now we can keep on going forward and doing something else. So that's wonderful, man. But anyways, hope you all are doing well. The heat has not shown any signs, or the temperature, I should say, has not shown any signs of lightening up. We're still getting these muggy days. They're a bit more bearable than previously, but it's easy with these hot days to really kind of be like, man, I can't get anything done. The heat's getting to me. I'm getting aggravated. I'm getting, hot and all that. But we got to just really, it's these challenges that really kind of make everything worthwhile, that really kind of bring us the ultimate test of just like, man, how far are we willing to go for the things we really want in this life, our dreams and really our goals, and making sure that we're putting, doing the best kind of work that we can, even on days like these. Because the winter is just so great. The winter is so... it's like one of the most productive times of the year. People are staying inside. There's no pressure to go out. No peer pressure, no societal obligations. You just stay in, which, I'm staying in anyways, man. Ain't nobody telling me, hey, come on out and do this. It's just not going to happen. But in the summer, everybody's outside. Everyone's, kind of just, they're trying to live in the summer for so long. And that's great and all, but there's still just so much to be done that it can never be fully encapsulated at once. But anyways, talking about films, man, let's talk about Something Weird Video. I don't know why they've been on the brain lately. I've been thinking about them, that company, for a little while now. I think the website is still being worked on, to my knowledge. Yes, it is under construction. But yeah, Something Weird Video, man. They are a real cool company. I think a lot of people probably have their own experiences with the company. I really don't think there is a single other label, a distribution label, that has put out the range of work that they have done. If there was ever an appropriate name of Something Weird, it is truly that. They've put out so many different kinds of films, but all these kind of lost films and obscurities and bizarre kind of, like, you watch it and it's just like, when they say Z grade, it really is like, this isn't even like, I don't like saying so bad it's good. I think that's a pretty ridiculous statement. But you watch some of those films and you're like, you have fun, but a lot of these you're just like, man, what is the appeal of some of these films? But it's part of the enjoyment, and it's part of, the joy of a lot of these films coming out. When I think of Something Weird, I always think about, I think I kind of just automatically go to, maybe like a late 50s, early 70s sort of era of films. A lot of like the sexploitation films, a lot of the early kind of gore horror films and all that. A lot of just like weird random stuff. Of course, they've done a whole bunch of stuff. They've done, really nothing contemporary, which is sort of how they are. In terms of like, they've partnered with like Kino Lorber, and they have a line of films through them, a lot of double features. I forgot what that line is called, but I have like a couple of those. But a lot of like scare films, or like educational films and all that. And they work with a lot of labels too. Vinegar Syndrome, of course. I think AGFA. AGFA puts out the majority of their stuff, and I think some of the people from Something Weird are involved with AGFA, to my knowledge, but don't quote me on that. But AGFA are just doing a lot of really strange stuff, and it's strange in a positive way, you know. A lot of these films, when they're getting released, you know, it's best to buy them when they're part of like collections and stuff, because you watch some of these on your own, and you know, you put your hard earned money towards some of these things, and you're just like, man, what is this? Is this bizarre kind of film? But when you're buying like in a collection, it makes it that much more bearable to to watch some of these, because there's so many just random, strange, but just cool stuff, man. You know, and I think with them, be, I've often heard, you know, the question of like what constitutes a film. And I'm not even distinguishing between like a film and a movie. You know, I'm talking about, you know, what a lot. Some of these are not going that much more than a home movie. Essentially, it's very much like, you know, results may vary. Is really kind of putting it lightly. I mean, you're getting a true wide range of stuff from them. Some big, you know, some bigger-ish films, you know, bigger cult films, some smaller ones. You know, Basket Case was a big film that Something Weird distributed. I remember I had the DVD of that. But primarily, you know, I always kind of associate them with distributing the Herschell Gordon Lewis stuff, because, I mean, for one, you know, we did the film Something Weird, but I remember, you know, if you guys remember, they had all those, like, those red DVDs that had the snapper cases on them, and they released all, like, the majority of his stuff, really his horror stuff. You know, I don't know how much of the sexploitation stuff they put out of his, but, you know, for one thing, you know, I always loved the covers to his films, man, because they were so distinctly, they had the same kind of art style, but they were so distinctly their own. And when you had those like kind of the red borders like around them, it really has this like sort of allure to it, you know. Let me get a sip of this. Hold on. But those films have all since been re-released, of course. But yeah, I remember, you know, back in the day, there was you know, the local video store, and they had a whole like big horror section in the back, and it wasn't just, you know, the big kind of, you know, horror films. A lot of strange stuff, a lot of like odds and ends. You know, if we're at that time, you know, didn't really have very good releases, and a lot of them really still don't. And I remember seeing DVDs for stuff like, you know, like The Wizard of Gore and like Color Me Blood Red, and I was just like, oh man, what are these films? And it's funny kind of looking at Herschell Gordon Lewis's filmography as a whole, because I think he's a director who the majority of his work, I would say, is more interesting in the context of you know, of film history and of, you know, horror history, more so than the films themselves. Because, you know, I bought that box set many years ago from Arrow Video, the big kind of serial box set they had. They've released a couple versions of that. They have like the big serial box set, and they had like the big special edition, which is like an actual like box, and then I think it has like a vinyl record, and then it has some other stuff in there. And then there was a regular kind of standard edition. But I have the serial box set, and I went through that box set, and yeah, I mean, with just like with Something Weird, I mean, results really may vary. I think there's a lot of curiosities in there. How many quality films there are, I mean, that is kind of maybe lesser results than you would hope for. But interesting nonetheless, man. I mean, a lot of that stuff, you know, when you're watching it, it doesn't, it kind of comes in all over the place of like, you know, if you want to say like, you know, it's kind of like goofy, and then they are. I mean, they're, you know, a lot of the acting is really rough. You know, a lot of the characters are very mundane. There's often a lot of technical issues with them, you know, audio, you know, or you see like, you watch like a low budget film and they have lighting, like, you know, these big kind of lights, you just see the shadows like blasted all over the wall, man. And then you get to the gore sequences, which are like really kind of the big highlights of these films. It's why people go to see them, because, you know, at that time, you know, these are like the 60s kind of drive-in films where it's, you know, you have these really, for the time, explicit sequences where it didn't really matter if it looked realistic. The fact of the matter is that there was, you know, all this like red paint to resemble blood and or whatever they were using, and it's just like, wow, kind of shocking. You have like Blood Feast, which is probably the most famous of his work, and you have the, you know, the opening scene. You have the woman in the bathtub, and then you have I forgot the bad guy's name in that, but he goes in there and he cuts her tongue out, and it doesn't matter if it looks realistic. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's just so shocking they actually showed that. But yeah, I mean, I always associated him with that label, and those films. Here, let me get a sip of this. Hold on. There are some good films in there. Um, I think the Gore Girls is the best film he ever did. That was 72, I believe. That was the last one he made before his hiatus, because he didn't make another film until, I want to say 2006, but don't quote me on that, because he was gone for a while. I think he got involved. He became like a copywriter or something like that. He wasn't he stopped making films for decades. He came back and he did a handful of films. He did Blood Feast 2 and the Uh-Oh Show, and then he eventually passed away. But it's sort of like a like a bookend to his career, because his early stuff was a lot of like sexploitation stuff, which one of Vinegar Syndrome's earliest releases was the lost films of Herschell Gordon Lewis, and I don't know how lost they actually were, but they were put out in that set of just like 2 or 3 of his sexploitation films. And when you watch his films, you kind of get an idea of what you're, at least his horror films, you're getting a lot of goofy characters. You're getting some good looking women in bikinis sometimes, or like in beach attire. Or swimsuit attire, I should say. You're getting some gnarly sequences. You're getting some wild dialogue. I mean, Blood Feast itself is a cult film, but it's such a I don't know. I mean, it's got this weird kind of tone to it that I can't really explain. Where it's got like a couple moments of actual kind of creepy, creepier kind of things. I mean, the whole thing about the guy, at the beginning, breaking into the girl's house and going, while she's in the bathtub. Like that, I think that whole scene is actually not too bad. I mean, yeah, a little silly, but I think too, like 2000 Maniacs, I think is honestly has some of his best stuff in his whole career, because that film, it's a cool concept of a film. These guys, these young adults, they end up in this small town, and it's their I forgot what it was. It was a tradition that was going on. It was their centennial, and they're a bunch of like kind of Confederate sort of like Southern kind of people, and they're going after these people, and I remember like watching the trailer for that when I was young. I was like, man, this is like actually kind of freaking me out. Some of the kills are really gnarly in that. I mean, they're just so. I mean, you watch it now, and it is still pretty silly, but at the same time, it's like, damn, it actually is pretty brutal, man. When you really think about it, I don't want to give them all away, but just like I remember watching that trailer when I was a kid, and I was just like, man, when you're young, it's just like you have any kind of context to any of these films. You have no idea what you're gonna watch. But even if they don't show anything, you're imagining these horrific sequences they show, like this lady tied down, they're gonna drop like a big rock on her, and regardless of how explicit it actually ends up being, which with a lot of these Herschell Gordon Lewis films, they're really not at all. Besides just showing like the aftermath, or showing some a dead body or something. But anyways, yeah, 2000 Maniacs, I think is solid. I think it's good, maybe not solid, but it's got some good like tense moments. There's like a whole like chase sequence that actually works out pretty well. The Gore Girls, I think, like I said, I think is his best. That one is and it has it has some downtime in it. It has like some nonsense kind of dance scenes, but overall, I mean. With that film, the lead actor in that is just so charismatic, and it's just so fun to watch, and it's a shame that that was kind of that was his last film for a while, because I think in comparison to his other films, how enjoyable that is to watch from beginning to end, and how it's got you can see his progression as a filmmaker, even from like his previous like more popular stuff. You just kind of see that, because what is Blood Feast? That's like 61, I think. I don't remember what year that is. I'm like throwing out years like I actually have any idea, but I really don't. It's 63. Okay, so you can see just the evolution of a filmmaker from there. And I should also say that Blood Feast 2 was 2002. All You, the letter U, can eat, and there was actually a remake as well in 2016. But yeah, no, I kind of got off topic. I was trying to talk more about something weird. But I really like, for one, a lot of the titles that AGFA are putting out. They're putting out a lot of really obscure stuff. And when I say obscure, I mean like, there's some of these films that I mean, people just don't know who's involved with the man. I mean, it's one of these things where, they have a print and they can restore it, but it's sort of like, you don't really have any kind of recognizable people in it. You're really just, like, something like Bat Pussy is one that's like a 50-minute, Batman sort of, porn parody. But that's one that's basically kind of shrouded in mystery. It's been released a couple times by them, but there's still not a lot of information about, who is involved with this, who the people are. So I find that so much more interesting because than some of these other films getting released that have 1,000 releases. Because with these, it's sort of like, who else is going to put that out? Who else is going to, what other label is going to take a chance? And something weird. They were selling a lot of DVD-Rs, and last year or maybe 2 years ago they had a big kind of last sort of sale when because now that they're no longer selling the DVD-Rs. They basically just got rid of like a lot of them, and we're selling them as is. But then a lot of these films end up getting new restorations. They end up getting, part of Blu-rays and stuff like from AGFA. So it kind of makes those DVDs sort of, out of date as is. But then you have something like the Ed Wood stuff where you have like Take It Out in Trade, which originally they released on DVD as just 90 minutes, I think 90 minutes of like, bloopers and outtakes and that kind of stuff, because that was a lost film, for a while. And then eventually, when I forgot who was involved with the commentary on another Ed Wood film, The Violent Years, which got an AGFA Blu-ray as well, but they were talking to the person doing the commentary, and they were asking about Take It Out in Trade, and it was a matter of how much they were going to pay for it, and eventually they did, and now that has a Blu-ray from AGFA, so that's no longer a lost film. And The Violent Years is another one that is just so silly, but I find it's just so, it's not like consistently fun to watch, because there is some downtime that does kind of dampen the film, but it's one of these, it's just such a silly kind of film. This sort of like girl gang is going out there and they're causing problems, and because you have all these like these moral kind of youth films. It's sort of like there has to be the big lesson, and because it's sort of like I'm often critical now of contemporary movies where they have to hold the audience's hand and explain the message to them. It's one of the things I remember talking about with Barbie, where it's almost like, well, we have to tell you what the movie's about just in case, so there's no ambiguity there. And it's sort of like, all right, well, this isn't for me, if you're going to hold my hand during this. But and it's nothing new. That's what these movies are doing too. So much so they would like devote large portions of the film to explain what it is to you. I mean, The Violent Years has this whole ridiculous last act where the parents of these girls who get in trouble, they have to really kind of reflect on how they were as parents, and oh man, we should have been more thoughtful. We should have really spent more time with them instead of buying them gifts. And then the judge has to tell them what they've done wrong, and instead of a new dress, perhaps a nice caress. It's like one of these things where it's like, man, there ain't no missing the point on this film, man. It's sort of like, well, you walk away and you get beaten with that message, but it's such a fun kind of silly film that you end up enjoying it overall. A lot of these, I found myself really attracted to a lot of these kinds of just like these quick kind of like hour 10, maybe hour 20 sorts of films, because, and the great thing, I would look at Something Weird's YouTube channel. They have a ton of their stuff uploaded on there, tons and tons of films. Obviously not any of the ones that have like some of the nude stuff, but it's a lot of the weird kind of like just random in between stuff. Not all of it's good. I watched a couple recently, and results are definitely gonna vary, man. I'll talk about one at the end, but it's like I was watching Mr. Angel from 1966. It's pretty dull. You got Jared in that film, and he's on this island, and there's this very like dream-like sequences in that, and we're cutting back to this other girl, and they're running around, and it kind of feels like a fever dream, but like not in like a way where it's enjoyable to watch. It's mostly just kind of like boring. And then you have this like a couple twists in it. It's just a strange film. And then I follow that up with Man of Steel from 1967. Some of these don't even have posters, man. I mean, some of these are just like as is. And Man of Steel is like bizarre as well, because it's like the opening says it's from like the Evangelicals of Canada, some organization, and I forgot about that. and this father and son, they're going up to go hunting, and they meet this guy, and he's telling all of them about this church and this pastor, and it's great. And and the son, he's a teenager. He comes back home and he sees his friends drinking beer, and they want to party, and he's like, "No way, man! I'm not doing that. I'm gonna get saved. You guys are dumb." And yeah, it's like a strange kind of oddity as well. And then I watched The Daredevil from 1972. And this was actually a pretty fun one, man. It's got some low ratings online, but I think you kind of have to take what you get with these sorts of things, because the car chases in this are pretty great. There's some gnarly car wreckage in this. I don't know how much is stock footage, but there's a lot of cars being messed up in this, and there's it has a lot of downtime too. By no means do you need to go out of your way for any of these movies, but it's just a fun watch, man. It's just just three just strange, weird, kind of random movies. But the one I gotta talk about, because I don't even know what to really say about it. It's one of the strangest things I've ever seen. It's from 1965, and I think it has some notoriety because Riff Tracks. I think those are the guys from the Mystery Science Theater. They did like a riff on it. I didn't watch that. I'm not interested in that riff track stuff. But it's called Fun in Balloon Land. It's 55 minutes, and it's one of the strangest things you'll see, man. Because oh my gosh, it starts off with a karaoke number. And we see these giant balloons. It's like a warehouse of balloons, and they with frightening faces. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like an analog horror sort of thing. And we see some stuff in the parade, and we're singing along, but the music, sounds kind of like I can't really describe music, but it doesn't sound upbeat. It kind of sounds like dark. It sounds like in a scary movie they would play that, like, oh, this is creepy old footage and this and that. Anyways, we have this kid who's he's with his ma, and it looks like they filmed this in the warehouse. It's a bizarre. I couldn't even call it a bedroom. It's like a chair with like a bunch of like a fake drawing of a tree behind him. Anyways, but the ma's reading him a book, and of course she falls asleep. She can't keep her eyes open. And the kid, who's also holding a balloon, he's like, you know what? I'm getting up, ma. And he walks over to this part of the room, and it's like this big fake book. It says fairy tales. And he walks right into it, and then he stands still like it's something out of the Blair Witch Project in the corner of this book, and then he's suddenly transported to this like magical land, which is just the warehouse with these giant, frightening balloons, and and then we have a bunch of voiceover, not even voiceover, it's narration, but it's like it's coming from off the screen, and you can hear the echo in the warehouse, and it's like. The kid looks as confused as I am watching this, man, because he sees these ballerinas dancing. He's like, the kid looks bored, man. And they just, there's not really any cuts. They kind of just stay on him. And you can see him, like, looking around, and he's like, all right, whatever. And he has these other kind of, I hate to even call them, like, different dream sequences, because it looks like they're just in different parts of the warehouse. But he's underwater at one point, even though, he's just, like, walking around and stuff, and he meets this king, and there's this giant, I don't even know what it is, man. These, like, sea creature things. And you're like, what is going on here, man? This is like some kind of in like cheaper sort of Jan Schwenkmeyer film. And then they're playing I think Old MacDonald, and they all all these kids look horribly uncoordinated, and they're looking at the camera, and I'm like, what is going on? Who is this movie made for? And then you get to the giant portion of the film, which is the 30 minutes of this parade, which looks like it's in, I think they said it was in Philadelphia. I think this was financed by this balloon company who have this yearly, or maybe not yearly, they have this parade. And these impressive looking balloons. They're like giant kinds of balloons. It's like, it's almost like a Thanksgiving parade. Actually, it may have been a Thanksgiving parade. I have no idea. But most notable about it is this narration that is, it's got this strange kind of narration that I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like, it's fascinating, because anytime, the woman narrating, I forget her name, but I think she actually narrated, if you guys remember, Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny, she narrated that, but just some of the things she's saying are just strange. It sounds like, I don't know, like, she's not quite drunk, but it's like loopy. It's like, oh, and there goes that rhino. That's the biggest rhino I've ever seen. Oh, there's the snake, the slithering snake. I don't want to get caught up in his tail. And actually, I have my iPad right here. Let me see if I can pull up a little bit of it. I'm not going to play a whole lot of it, but I want you guys to get an idea of what this is, because I can't possibly put into words, and I was laughing of just some of this dialogue, man. So let me pull this up here. Bear with me for a second. This is the first time I've done this recording. It's bizarre, to say the least. Okay. I'm going to skip to a random part here. Let's just see. I don't know if it's going to pop up or if you can hear it or not.
Struck one and down he came. Hickory dickory dock.
Like, you hear that, man?
It's a rather large mouse to be running up the clock with such pinky ears.
They didn't even re-record that.
What he does when he runs down the clock.
And this goes on for like 30 minutes, man.
What? And a giant and a giant. Or a mama and her great big family. You see, only lady elephants are allowed in the circus. The males are too wild and would run around, perhaps into the audience. So just the mamas and their babies are allowed to parade in the circus. They're so gay, so friendly, and such a long line. What's on top of them? Dogs.
It's nonsense.
Poodles doing an act. Aren't they darling? I wonder if your own poodle at home could stand on its hind legs.
I don't know, man. I don't got a poodle. And then at the end of the movie, they have like, okay, well, the movie's over at like 40 minutes, man. The parade's over. The kid wakes up. Oh, yeah, spoiler alert. And he goes back to bed. And you're like, all right, the movie's over. Oh, and Santa Claus shows up. Of course he shows up. Listen to this, man. It's every week's who we've been waiting for, man. It's Santa Claus. Where is that man? Where the hell is he? I'm losing my mind here, man.
For you, Santa. We keep the treat for all of us. Santa Claus. We've been waiting a long time for you, Santa. We can't wait to wave.
I can't wait to wave. I'm waving. I don't know what Santa's doing at the Thanksgiving parade.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And to all a good night.
Okay, so that's the end of it. And the kid goes back to bed, and you're like, all right, movie's over. You know, no, it's not over yet, man. It goes on for more. They have a guessing game. It's like they're making it up as they're going along. They'll have a giant ass balloon animal, and they're like, do you see the animal, like whatever? And then you're like, obviously you see it. You know, you're not blind. You watch the movie, man. You know, that's when you watch it. She's like, oh, that was an easy one. I shouldn't have said that. And it's like, why did you even say it in the first place? And it just goes on, and it just goes on. And then you have another musical number at the end about the time you had at Balloon Land. Listen to this. It's got this carnival music. Look at that float, ain't it ducky? Hey kids, now aren't we lucky? Elephant's trunks are a wagon, high over the little red wagon. My, how the teddy bear's lagging. I'll bet his arches are sagging. See, this is like you watch with your family, you sing along. That's something weird, man. They put out either, you know, they put out horrific, gory horror movies. I didn't even talk about Sex Demon. Oh my gosh. I'll talk about Sex Demon sometime. I don't even know what to say about that movie. They put out these bizarre adult XXX films, and they put out lighthearted family fare like Fun in Balloon Land. So I'm going to get out of here, man. I'm losing my mind talking about these damn something weird movies. But hey, you guys don't lose your minds. You stay safe, you stay focused, you stay true to your craft and yourself, and take everything one day at a time, man. It's a beautiful life to live, so let's live it every day, and, you know, let's have a great time, man. What did Uncle Bill say? Make people laugh, be a comedian. That's all I got, man. Alright, hey, you guys take care, alright?